only weighs 3 pounds. Your brain, the smartest thing around. Your brain, a miraculous machine, the most supercharged computer the world has ever seen.
Your brain. That's going to be on my brain all day today. Welcome, everybody. It's Mental Health Awareness Month. This is my Mental Health Awareness LinkedIn Live discussion series. We have episode number 2. I'm Mark Stabina from Winning EQ. I help companies improve their performance and improve their culture by taking better care of their people. And I'm a mental health advocate. In fact, it was struggles with my own mental health, navigating a career-ending injury that led me here to be talking about mental health and coaching leadership. I have a passion for emotional intelligence and mental health through my own experiences, and I just love helping others improve their emotional intelligence, which then leads to better mental health. And our guest today can relate to being a former athlete, being a mental health advocate. The difference between myself and our guest is that she is an expert in mental health. I'm not. Now, let me prove to you just what an expert Dr. Kristen Willermeyer is. She is a neuroscientist with research expertise in neurobiology and neuroimaging. She holds a bachelor degree in psychology from Boston College, Master of Science in Physiological Science, and PhD in neurobiology, all from UCLA as well. Now, here's what's great. She oversaw many pioneering studies, including a clinical research trial investigating the long-term effects of repetitive head impacts on brain function in NFL players. She's widely published in peer-reviewed medical journals, including the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease, Nature Translational Psychiatry, the Journal of Neuroscience, and the Journal of Nuclear Medicine. Areas of her published research include mild traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress disorder, autism, neuroimaging biomarkers predictive of suicide, and many, many, many more. That is why it's so important to have her on during this Mental Health Awareness Month. Without any further ado, please welcome with me Dr. Kristen Willermeyer to the stage. Welcome, and great to see you, friend.
Mark, it is such an honor and a pleasure to be here. And can I just say that introductory song was brilliant. It's so brilliant.
Oh.
Well, yeah, it rhymed. Did you come up with that?
It's a children's song I found.
That's a children's song?
Your brain is sending and receiving. Your brain, the information that you're needing.
It is. I mean, couldn't you tell? But what a great way to, and we're going to talk about this today because I had to get you on. We're talking about mental health and raising mental health awareness. We spend so much of our time learning about our physical health, right? People have an intimate knowledge of their muscles and their bones and their digestive systems. But the brain is little known, but it controls everything. And that's why I just wanted to have an expert like you shed some light. And back to that song, how great is it that things like that are out there? Because you got to start with the kiddos. If we can,
you gotta start with the kiddos, right? It starts young. So I love that somebody created that.
And you have such a great way of, just like that children's song, of explaining such a complex subject. The brain. And this is probably why people don't spend the time to really intimately get to know the ins and outs of brain function and brain health, because it is so damn confusing and there's so many big words. But you do a wonderful job always of just simplifying it and making learning about our brains so much more accessible and easy. So no pressure, but that's what you're here to do today. Mental health. Okay. It covers so many different issues and topics about mental health. So let me just ask you, is there something that you'd like to talk about, or what is it about mental health awareness that you'd like to raise awareness for?
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought that up. And you and I had a little conversation before we started. And, you know, in preparing for this talk today, I thought, what would be the most important piece of information that I could share with your audience? and having had the great fortune of working with Dr. Daniel Amen at the Amen Clinics, as you had shared, I ran his neuroimaging department. One of the things that I learned is when people struggle with mental health issues, they really tend to start to feel isolated. And, you talked about this with Rob, who has his charity Loose Heads, and he sort of started that for all of the rugby players. So these rugby players who, are taking impacts to the head, when you damage the physical brain, you start to damage the neurons in the brain. That is what can lead to all kinds of mental health issues, anxiety, depression, PTSD. And we see that in athletes who participate in contact and collision based sports. So, what I love about him starting his organization for rugby players is to give them that safe space to come forward, not feel isolated, and to help them get through their mental health issues together. So, what I felt would be really impactful and what I've learned is that people need to have a community of support in order to help sort of navigate life with mental health issues. Because for some people, mental health issues are heritable, meaning they've inherited it from their mother, their father, their grandparents. And sometimes they start later in life in the 20s, sometimes they start in the teens, and then they have these mental health issues they're going to have manage throughout their entire lifespan. They need a community of support. No different than the athlete who's playing the collision based sport, maybe was healthy, then suffered the physical trauma, and then has the anxiety, the depression, what can happen after you've actually damaged those neurons to the brain. And we will talk about ways to sort of restore and rehabilitate brain function. That's the good thing. If you've played these sports, like I have, like you have, Mark, there's still things that we can do to support brain health. So what I wanted to share with your audience, and I came up with this concept, is I feel that everybody should have what we call a power five. So, most people know that we are the sum of the 5 people that we spend the most amount of time with, right? Who we have our intimate discussions with, who we can open up to and be vulnerable. And in the mental health space, we always look at bio, psycho, social, and spiritual. We sort of look at mental health in all of these lenses, right? The biological space, so psychological, social, and spiritual. So with the Power Five, what I sort of the challenge that I think I'm going to put out to your LinkedIn Live community is I would like you to find somebody within each one of these buckets that can be part of your circle of 5 people that you can connect with on a weekly basis so that you start to form this community of support that is there for you when you struggle with the mental health challenge. So start with biological. Pick one person that is closely related to you. It could be your parents, your siblings, your in-laws, your children, your grandparents, your godparents. I had a godfather that I spoke to every morning, even if it was for 3 minutes, every morning and every night. And we did that for 30 years, right prior to his passing. So pick somebody that's close in your family that you can connect with and be vulnerable to. Psychological. So I know some people who are listening might have a psychologist they speak to or a psychiatrist, but if you don't, it can be a life coach. It can just be somebody in the mental health space. It can even be a group. So like you had brought Rob in, connecting with Rob's group, Loose Heads, that's just a community of support that can even lead you to mental health support. So we've got biological, psychological, social. Social can be anybody, your friends, fraternity brothers, sorority brothers, teammates, that's an easy one, neighbors. And then spiritual. So that's one, some people might go, oh, I don't have anybody that I can connect with. But think about, rabbi, a priest. Some people are connected with monks. You can have meditation coaches or teachers, somebody who's going to give you a perspective that maybe is outside of oneself. That's why we look at that spiritual piece as being important. And then I call it the Power Five because I want you to have 5 people. So you could pick somebody from each bucket. You can have 2 people, from one of those buckets. And the reason why I bring this up is, at least in my life, I have those 5 people that I can lean on, and I've got somebody that's in one of those, 4 of those 5 categories. And it's helped me get through some really, challenges in my life, the loss of my parents, the loss of, my godfather, lost several people during COVID.
Mm.
Um, but we all have to have our way of coping, and I feel like having your power 5 is a very smart strategy that you can do, um, starting today, and each week building on that, so that's strong and it's there when you're going through challenges.
Dr. Kristen, here's what I love about that. Yes, it's so important to have people to lean on, number one, but to ensure that you have 5
Yeah.
makes us look at 5 or 4 or 5 different areas of our life, and that we're making sure that we are creating balance and then connecting with people from those different areas. That's what I get from when I'm thinking of, well, who are my 5? I'm
Yeah.
thinking people, like, especially when you said spiritual. So a lot of people might, as you said, straight away be like, oh, I wouldn't know anyone. I don't know anyone.
Right.
Maybe that's an opportunity then to look at introducing that as part of your life, a practice, a meditation practice. Go to a breathwork class, do yoga. You'll see a lot of spiritual people at a yoga class. And maybe you need to start there. Introduce that into your life for your own benefit, to fill you up in that area, and then connect with people within that bucket. So that's what I like about that, because so many people have one. There's even studies out there, isn't there, on loneliness, especially in America, of how few people have that they would consider close enough to share struggles with. It's
Well,
one or two.
that's the important part, and I think we all learned about that during COVID, what it felt like to be isolated and, just with our family or loved ones, but without being connected to our outside groups. And I think the reason why I bring up the Power 5 and what I've learned is each group is going to have a different perspective that they can bring to your life. So sometimes our friends and family members who have known us for a long time, they're going to bring a certain perspective. But when you go into the mental health space and work with somebody who's trained
Yeah.
to help people navigate life dealing with paralyzing anxiety or post traumatic stress, there is a compassion, there is a perspective that those individuals can bring to your life that might actually be revelatory and bring hope, um, and bring faith that you can get through anything.
Mhm.
Now, I was very fortunate because I was raised by a father who was a combat helicopter pilot in the Vietnam War.
Correct.
And I remember my father always telling me he had no fear. He didn't fear death. He felt honored to be serving his country. And his only fear was if he died during the war, how that would impact his parents. So imagine that's how I was raised. I was actually raised by a father who was fearless. And when I think about mental health, one of the things that comes up for a lot of people is it's scary and it feels like it's permanent. It feels like you're broken. It feels like, how do I change my brain? So by creating this community, your Power 5 community, that's going to have people in it that help you to get through things that feel fearful, so you feel safe and supported. Um, that's what's really important. And that's what I got from your conversation with Rob and
Mm.
his Loose Heads
Mm.
Foundation, and our mutual friend Eric Kuzin, and his Same Here movement. We need to do this collectively as a tribe, and that's what's going to help get people through their mental health struggles.
The Power 5. I love it.
The
And
Power 5.
5. I'm going to work on my Power 5
I
after
mean,
this.
do you have all your buckets filled? Do you have people that are?
I have the buckets. I have the buckets, and now I
Mhm.
think what I get to do is then lean into that. Look at different people within those buckets that I would put into my Power 5, my dream team. Uh,
Yeah,
I definitely have them, and in fact, that is one of my buckets: community.
yeah,
So I realized that I was just doing way too much stuff on my own, and isolating myself without really realizing I was isolating. I made my little world just so important and doing things by myself. And, that comes back to childhood where I like to play lone wolf. I like to do things by myself and control my situations. And then being forcing myself to get out and meet other people, because as human beings, we crave connection. We need connection. You mentioned that. So
we do. Well, we're connected. Those are heart-based connections, and the heart is connected to the brain, right? There's this plexus of 40,000 little neurites that are connected to your brain. And we're also, that heart-brain connection is really what helps bring the inner joy and the happiness that I think people are seeking. So again, as this being a mental health awareness month, what are the things that we can do to bring us greater joy and happiness? It's making those connections, those heart-based connections. And it is easy to get isolated. I mean, I'm an only child, so I completely understand where you're coming from. And it's very easy for me. It's probably why I became a research scientist. It was easy for me to sit and dissect brains in a lab all day and not have a lot of connection except with my mentors or people who are in my lab. And there's a lot of creativity that can come from, being alone and being sort of in that contemplative space, but we're social human beings. And I think, when you struggle with those mental health challenges, because we all do, you've talked about this on your podcast before, 1 in 5 people in the United States are currently struggling with a mental health issue. As our friend Eric would say, that's 5 in 5, yes. Because pretty much everybody has struggled with some sort of, up and down, the ups and downs of just being a human being and living in this world and experiencing death and sickness. But the beautiful thing is that we've got one another to go through it together. And having worked with people who have also gone through suicidal ideations, I've experienced that personally with people close in my life as well as in the clinical setting. The one thing I realized is that they just need to know that somebody out there cares and that, you have that hand to offer, when people are struggling. And when I talk about Power 5, I also want you to be a Power 5 member for somebody else. Anybody listening, I do that all the time. So I have so many people that I'm connected with, and they will just pop into my mind, and I'll send a quick note. How are you doing today? Just want to check in. Is there anything I can do? So be a Power 5 member for somebody else and inspire them to get their 5. Because I'll tell you, when the chips are down and things are really hard, I pick up the phone and call people. Yeah. I'm like, I'm really struggling. I'm going through this right now. And it is so comforting and reassuring for me to be able to have, my core group of people to do that with.
And being someone's Power 5 or in their Power 5, I say this time and time again, when we give the gift of support to somebody else, we're giving it to ourselves as well. So that's one thing that I tell people to improve their own mental health and stay on top of their own game is to focus outward, give support to someone maybe less fortunate or somebody in need. And straight away, we boost our own mental health in doing that. Then we're just creating that flow of giving and receiving. And I think it gets cut off too often in this world, doesn't it?
It really does. I love that. Like, just thinking about it makes me so happy to hear how engaged you are. I mean, you've created your Winning EQ community. You're reaching out and giving back. And here, you are somebody who struggled with mental health issues because of participating in your sport. And look what you've done. You've now taken that and you've created this community of support, and you've highlighted the importance of emotional intelligence, right? And being sort of emotionally present and learning how to manage and balance your emotions. For Mental Health Awareness Month, what is the most important is to know that you are not alone.
Yeah.
There's hope. There's people like you and I out there. I love being part of people's Power 5. If anybody's listening and they need mental health support, you can email me, and anybody I've worked with knows they can connect with me anytime.
And thank you for your kind words. You have this
Yeah.
knack of being able to not make it about yourself, just make it about other people. But I'm here to make it about you. I want to take this
Me?
yes, and your brand. And we're here to pick your brain. I
Okay.
want to make the most of this opportunity to have an expert in brain health. What is something about the brain that most people don't know that we should know that will improve our mental health?
Well, oh, there's so much about the brain that people probably don't know. Your beautiful brain is comprised of, 86 billion neurons. Each one of those neurons can make up to 10,000 connections. So there's trillions of connections. And your beautiful brain continues to grow up until the age of 30, where it reaches full maturity.
Hmm.
And then as we age, right, from 40 on, the brain volume starts to shrink about 5% per decade.
Oh,
So what
wow.
I like to teach people is that you want to start taking care of your brain health as soon as possible. And what does that mean? That means preserving and maintaining those neurons and those neuronal connections throughout the lifespan. And one of the many things that I learned through working at the Amen clinics, and we've imaged tens of thousands of brains, right? I helped Dr. Amen build his massive brain SPECT imaging database, which currently has 200,000 brain scans. So I've had the opportunity to see thousands of brain images. And one of the many things that I've learned in looking at the brain is most people have poor perfusion to the brain, which means poor blood flow, and they don't know it. So, as you know, I wrote a book called Biohack Your Brain. And one of the reasons why I wrote it is to teach people what are the practical dietary and lifestyle modifications you can do to help preserve and protect your brain as you age. And, one of the many strategies, and, it sounds so common. Oh, thank you for sharing that. But one of the many strategies is you have to look at the kind of foods that you're consuming on a daily basis, right? What are the foods that you're eating? Are they clean, healthy choices, right? Are they loaded with antioxidants, which help to protect the neurons as you age? So we all know the Mediterranean diet is one of the best ways to help preserve cardiovascular health and neurological health as you age. There's robust evidence in the scientific literature to show that it can literally protect your brain and reduce the risk of dementia. So if you're looking for dietary and lifestyle habits to start embracing, I strongly advise a Mediterranean plan, right? You think about healthy fruits, vegetables,
Olive
lean
oils
meats, fish, yes, olive oils, nuts, all of it. So I think that's the great start. Number two, I've always taught people about the importance of hydration, right? And we've talked about this before on one of your podcasts, right? You want to make sure you're drinking enough water to keep your brain well hydrated. So that can be anywhere from 1.3 liters to 2 liters per day. We have an equation that we like to say. You want to drink half your body weight in ounces of water each day. So say you weigh 100 pounds, divide that in half. That's 50 ounces of water. Most people listening are probably going to weigh a little bit more than that, but you want to drink the water for your brain health. So simple things, healthy eating habits, hydrating properly, making sure that you get your exercise in each day. What's the easiest way to boost blood flow to the brain? Getting out and exercising. So they're very simple things that you can do to really help support your overall brain health.
So thank you for sharing that. And you've answered my next question. And I like to wrap things up normally with all my guests with 3 to 5 takeaways. What can people take away? And in this case, I was going to ask you, well, what are some things, 3 to 5 things we can do to improve our brain health, which is going to lead to better mental health? I think you just did it. Is there anything else that you want to add to the 3 to 5? And in actual fact, I'll just ask you maybe to summarize exactly what you just said with 3 to 5 things, and then people can say, I'm doing that right now.
Right. So very easy. So start with, great fruits and vegetables. So every day, if you want something really simple, eat a bowl of blueberries each day, right?
Mm.
High antioxidant foods. Antioxidants protect the neurons in your brain. Number two, hydrate well. So make sure that you get your water quotient in each day, or you can get it through green juices, soups. There are other hydrating foods besides water, but just remember to properly hydrate. Three, get your exercise in each day. It can be power walking, going to the gym and lifting, running, rowing, swimming. Just keep moving. And number four, just know if you are struggling with a mental health issue, we have incredible technologies like neurofeedback that are non-medication ways to help stabilize brain network activity. That's something sort of much more advanced than the basics, but I did want to let people know that technology is out there and available. And number five, practice gratitude. We all know that the way we think, our thoughts are so important, and we remember to be grateful for what we have and the people in our life, that has positive impacts on brain function. And you know what? Number six,
Yes.
just do your best to stay positive and learn how to shift your mind into a positive mental state. That's going to be so helpful to your mental health. And you know what? Number seven, I'm going to give one more. When
Please.
you're watching television, mute the commercials.
Really?
Because anything that you watch goes into your subconscious mind. So mute the commercials.
What is it about the commercials that is not good for our brain?
Well, it's more about what you're letting into your subconscious mind. So I do like to teach people, tend to the garden of your mind and be mindful about what you're allowing in. So a lot of times, if you want to be brain healthy and you're watching the NBA, playoff games like my husband and I are doing, when you listen to the commercials, they're for hot wings, they're for sodas, all of these things that are not great for your brain health. So my husband knows when the commercials come on, we mute them. I don't want any kind of information coming into your subconscious mind, because your subconscious is what's going to help. It motivates your behavior more than you know. And again, circling back to the Power Five, why do we have our Power Five, who are the people that care about us the most in the world? It's because they are also going to positively impact our behaviors. They're going to make us feel loved and supported, and
Mm.
that's going to be great for our mental health. So you got more than five.
I've actually started introducing for myself no TV days.
When you bring up television, so television is a very passive activity, which
Mhm.
is why, if you're thinking about brain health and how to really sort of strengthen your brain, this is why reading is much better for your brain health, right? Reading from a book, reading newspapers, reading your medical journals, reading and learning and stretching your neurons, putting new ideas into your mind. That's what's so beautiful about those kind of practices. Well, I'm fine with people watching television. Like, if you want to do 1 to 2 hours of television, that's fine. That's sometimes how people, you know, unwind from their day. And I love watching a great sporting event. Like I said, we've always got sports on, and they're fun and they're engaging and they can lift your spirits as long as you mute the commercials. Um, Sorry, it's
Yeah.
like I said, it's taken a long time to teach my husband why we do this, but he's got it now. Like I said, because we are passively influenced all the time, and so I want people to think about being, choosing what influences them. Again, Power Five. Who are the five people that you want to be influencing your mind on a daily basis? Like, you are a positive influence, so you can be part of my Power Five. That's
Mm.
that's what's important. So I guess, maybe a final thought is just be mindful about who you allow in your space, what you allow in your space, bringing more, deep inner peace, things that bring you peace to your heart, peace
Yeah.
to your mind. That's what's going to lead to a healthy brain. I mean, I know we talk about, the healthy things to eat. People do know what to eat. I talk about the Mediterranean diet, but we all know if it's something that you can pick from your garden, you can eat it, right? Don't eat the processed foods. I mean, it seems intuitive, but it's good to remind people, and it's good to remind people there's science, robust science that shows diets like the Mediterranean diet can slow and reduce your risk of Alzheimer's disease. So I like to, bring those things up. But yeah, there's all kinds of fun things we can do to protect our brain.
I'm so glad I had you on, because that's what I wanted from your expertise, is to give us another way of thinking about the brain and have us just remind ourselves of how important it is, and to get motivated to feed our brain, to focus on brain health and how it can enhance our life, because it's so easy to neglect that. So rather than think of ways to punish bad behavior, let's get behind good behavior.
The positive. Well,
Yeah.
we're so used to punishing bad behavior.
Mhm.
When I would teach people, so I ran a brain-directed weight loss group at the Amen Clinics, and I loved it, right? I did this for 7 years, helping thousands of people lose weight by getting brain healthy. And everything was more reward-based, right? I would just teach people how to shift behaviors, right? If had 2 cups of coffee a day, maybe I would help you shift to 1 cup of coffee and we get you drinking a green tea. Or, if you were having 100 grams of sugar per day, because I had everybody track, how
Mhm.
much sugar they were consuming in a day, maybe we would shift you down to 75 grams. Then we get you to 50. Everything's incremental, but we live a very long life. The body is very forgiving. Even your brain is very forgiving. And what's amazing is your brain throughout life, you're going to continue to make neural connections. So, what connections are you strengthening? Are you
Mhm.
strengthening the connections that are going to be important in healthy relationships? Are you strengthening the connections that help your self-esteem and self-worth? And again, I've noticed, working with people in psychiatry, that safety piece, the self-esteem piece, the feeling joy and happiness piece, those are the most important. And
Yeah.
all of the things we've talked about today really sort of surround those guiding principles. And then I try to teach people, how do we change the environment that we live in so that we're not bombarded by things that bring us stress, right? So that's really the shift. Even the shift in when you're driving to work, right? I used to have an hour and a half commute to work and back. So that's 3 hours on the road. How did
Wow.
I want to enjoy that commute? Am I listening to a podcast? Am I talking
Mhm.
to patients or clients on the phone? Am I talking to a loved one? Just shifting the way. Am I going to get upset because somebody cut me off in traffic, right?
Mhm.
I actually learned it doesn't really serve me to get mad, right? Doesn't serve me, I might make a bad decision. So I just try to teach people more about, how do we take what we're doing in a day and just shift a little bit so
Yeah.
that we're a little bit happier, we're a little bit more in control of our emotions. And if we aren't, this is when we go and seek help from a psychologist, a psychiatrist, mental health counselor, cognitive behavioral therapist, get
Mhm.
some neurofeedback to help balance your brain networks. Again, because sometimes we've inherited these patterns from our parents, right? This is ancestral. And if it's ancestral, so much compassion for that. That's why we have the mental health services. And that's why we have mental health in the Power Five, right? The psychological piece. Who do you lean on when
Mhm.
you need mental health support?
Just as you were saying that, that could be someone in the Power of Five. It is a practice, people. What you were just saying about focusing on the positives, looking at the opportunities in our everyday situation instead of the obstacles, right? Seeing if
Yeah.
something happens like traffic. It's so common. I had a horrible travel day back from a wonderful weekend in Mexico. Delays, bad weather, diversions, this, that, sitting around.
Yeah.
And I could have let that get the better of me and ruin my entire weekend that I spent a lot of money on. But because of practice, because of surrounding myself with people like yourself, having people in my Power Five that
Yeah.
see things differently, that see things like, well, yeah, you could choose to really be grumpy and yell at that service desk person
Right.
because they couldn't put you on an earlier flight. Or you could see this as an opportunity to think positively, go and sit down, get back to that podcast that you've been too busy to get to, or that book that you've been
Right.
too busy to read, and really enhance your brain health. Like it's a shift in perspective that does take practice. And I love what you said, Kristen, when you said, and if you still struggle with that, then seek expert help from people who can help you get to that stage.
And give you perspective.
Give you
It is about perspective. You're going to laugh. So my mom is from New York, and I'll never forget my mom in traffic. My mom used to like honk her horn and she actually,
Such a New Yorker.
she wore the horn out. Like she actually honked it so much it didn't work. And I was like, I've never met anyone in my entire life who's honked the horn so much that it like is non-functional. And so I grew up with a mom who was, I guess it's like the angry New Yorker. She just had that edge to her, and everybody in her family, by the way, had the edge. And I used to laugh. It would make me laugh all the time. So she would be mad, and I used to do things to just try to get her to laugh, because it wasn't fun being in an environment with a parent who was really a disciplinarian and very tough. And so I used laughter, and just my mind was always strategizing, like, how do I shift her out of this perspective? And I became very skilled at doing it. And I realized, those negative behaviors, she had high blood pressure because of it. And it did impact her health in a negative way. And so, I thought to myself, wait, there are better ways to do this, right? There are better ways to handle stress, which is what my dad was able to do as this calm, cool, collected, helicopter pilot in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And he was a fireman and a pilot for Pan Am. And he had 2 of those jobs at the same time. And that man could just navigate stress like a Zen master. He was just so calm and peaceful and kind. And so I had this, really tough, strong mother who would yell and just let her expressions be known. And I actually like that. I think people need to express themselves. So if you get cut off in traffic, by all means, like, rawr, like, do what you need to do, do your thing, but then, take a beat and just reshift so it doesn't cause you to get into an accident or lose focus, because that's what emotions do to our brain. Emotions do not allow us to think strategically and clearly. We tend to get caught up in them, and we don't always make our best decisions. So, and ask any man who's impulsively done something when they're aggressive, they're angry, and then they do something impulsively and then regret it. So this is where kind of the work that you do, teaching people how to navigate their emotions, have them, everybody should express them. I don't want people to live in a Pollyanna world. I want them to live in a world where they have agency over their emotions. You can express them, but then don't let them get the best of you in your relationships.
I love that. And that just reminds me, one of my favorite quotes, because it is, again, a practice, but when you hear the quote, I think it was Dr. Viktor Frankl.
Man's Search for Meaning.
What a book. And from that, the quote by him where he says, and we're human. So every human, you talked about emotions. It's not about suppressing emotions or trying not to have emotions. We have emotions. But wasn't it between stimulus and response, there's a pause. So there's a gap, right? There's a space. Thank you. I'm butchering it, but you know it well. It's about what we do in that space. And so many people don't allow, as you said, take a beat. We're not allowing the space. And that space is, we can take that space to then think through, just in pausing and not reacting straight away with a behavior that we'll regret, as you mentioned.
Yes.
We take a beat, we take a pause, we use that gap to formulate a behavior or choose a response that will serve us, who we want to be, what we want to achieve.
Right.
And, more often.
That's overriding the emotional system, because unconsciously react, right? The emotion comes out before the rational mind and the prefrontal cortex can make the good decision. Is this a good behavior?
Mhm.
And that's a really important point. See, this is so good we're doing this free form because things just keep flying into my brain as we're talking.
They do.
It's no, this is really, it's actually a very important concept. This is why we always say with age comes wisdom, because as we get older, we learn how to self-regulate and manage our emotions, conversely, when we're in our teens and our 20s, right? We fly
Yeah.
off the handle, but that's, your brain is still developing. So I still have empathy and compassion for all young people, right? Once you hit 30, you have no excuse. You
So
should be.
I'm glad you said that. Do you know what this stands for? This is my movement. This is young,
Tell
older,
me.
young, older
Older.
guy, and where
Oh,
I'm trying to educate. It started with men, but women are jumping on board. Young, older
yes.
gals.
Yeah.
As we get into our 30s, the age is 35 officially when you become a yog by my
Okay. A
standards.
yog. Okay.
Yog. So you become a yog officially at age 35 and above. Because so many people struggle with the concept of getting older, and I
Right.
wish I was younger. I can't do this anymore. I can't do that anymore. However, you're getting wiser. So focus on the fact that you're getting
Genius.
better as you get older, and let's think about that.
Age is such a gift. It is such a gift from an emotional standpoint, from an intellectual standpoint, from a financial standpoint. I mean, you have so much to give, and so I'm telling you, anybody who's listening, like, I'm at the 50-yard line. So I always say, I'm 51 now.
No.
And yeah. So I laugh, have that joke in our house that I've hit the 50-yard line. And I do have on my father's side of the family, the Swedish side, um, my Swedish grandparents lived to 92 and 95, and their parents, my great grandparents, lived to 103. And I feel like we do learn. There is something really special about aging. And I don't know what it is, just like you said with your
Young, older guy.
yog. Yeah. the, I think life becomes better because, we understand how things work, right? We're all in this sort of game of pattern recognition. Everything is about pattern recognition, and we learn through patterns how to do things better. We become better strategists. We become, more proficient and efficient at life. And I think we become masterful not only of our own lives, but that's when the giving back piece comes in, where we
Mm,
actually attain great joy in mentoring people,
mm,
giving people a hand up, um, helping people who are struggling with degenerative diseases, psychiatric issues. Like, we have more compassion, we're more available. So uh, I do I do love this concept. And our brains, right, can continue to evolve and grow and strengthen with age. Yes, I was saying, like, it does shrink. It does shrink with age. That's just because we're not in a continued period of growth, but there are certain regions of the brain, like the hippocampus, where neurons continue to grow throughout the lifespan. And the hippocampus
mm.
is the area of the brain where we consolidate everything that we've learned during the day, from short-term memory to long-term. So we need our hippocampus for, our overall memory. So that is, again, you talk about some of the extraordinary discoveries we've made in the field of neuroscience. That's one of many. But it should hearten people that do not be afraid of age. I like to tell the story. Remember that we might have talked about this, that actress Betty White,
Yeah.
who died. I think she died at 99. Did she make it to 100?
Oh, good question.
She
I
might
think
have
it's
made it to 100. So she lived in the building that we lived in Los Angeles, in Century City, and she would come in and out, and she was so lovely. She was still getting parts, like acting gigs, at 99. And what I found so fascinating, she was still memorizing things, memorizing scripts and learning lines. And I always would tell people, I'm like, if Betty White can do this at 99, we have no excuse. Nobody has any excuse. Like, your memory does not have to decline, but you have to keep it engaged. You have to keep learning. You have to make an active effort to do those things. And I will tell you, 70-year-old grandfather. He owned an auto parts store. At 70, he joined Toastmasters and he became a police officer. I think he joined like a retired, like a volunteer police force. And in his like later years, he had these new careers that he was doing, learning how to do public speaking. So, as we're talking about aging and becoming wiser as we age and gaining better control of our emotional reactions to things, there is so much. Yeah, there's so much to live for.
Oh, totally agree. This is it. You're speaking my language. You'll become an official ambassador for YOG, I think.
I would love it. Can I get a shirt?
Size are you? I'll get your size afterwards.
May I have a shirt?
The smalls kicking around. A couple of men's extra smalls might fit.
I'll do a men's extra small. That'll work.
Okay.
That'll work.
With pleasure. Listen, that's so many golden nuggets. I've kept you way too long on this thing. And I also have a commitment to my LinkedIn Live community while you're at work, coming in and out. I've seen a lot of people dip their toes in. Thank you for joining us. But Dr. Kristen Willemeyer, always a pleasure. And we could keep going for an hour. We have done before, or 2 hours or 3 hours. We're going to have this discussion and many more again. But I just want to say thank you so much for giving your time. You have done just a wonderful thing by showing up today, giving us so many things to focus on and think about that will improve our mental health. You are an absolute gem. Thank you so much.
I absolutely love this time with you. Thank you for being such a beautiful, bright light in this world and helping share the awareness of this mental health month and the great work you're doing with Winning EQ. And it's just such an honor and a pleasure to be your friend.
Thank you. I feel the same way. And just before we log off here, I want to give people an opportunity to find you. Another QR code for people, I'll have this later on in a recording. So those that missed it will get to see this. This is your website. Is there another way? I think you mentioned an email. You're so accessible. And again, thank you for that. Where can people email you if they just want to reach out and hire you or just ask for support in any way possible?
Yeah, no, I have on my website, there's a contact form where you can reach out. So send me an email if you have any questions, if I can help you in any way possible. It would be my pleasure, especially being part of Mark's wonderful community. So this has been so much fun.
Thank you. It always is. And you're in my Power 5. So
I love it. I want to be in your Power 5. So so what that means is we have to be connected. Really, I want people to be in the Power 5 to be connected weekly. Okay. Even if it's a text, or you'll find great comfort with your Power 5. Yeah. You will. Trust me, a year from now, if we're doing this, I'd love to hear if people have established their Power 5.
Let's check in. Let's check back in. Let's be everyone's accountability buddies on this.
I love it.
It's fantastic. I'll be using the Power 5 in my coaching now. And I mean that.
I love it. Yeah.
Among other brilliant pieces of wisdom that you shared today. Honestly, just so much value. So let's sign off now and get on with our days and get on with improving our brain health and our mental health. Dr. Kristen, thank you so much. And I'll be in touch as my
I love it. I love it. Thank you, my friend.
All right, Kristen. Bye for now.
Bye.
What about that? Look at this. Okay, the longest LinkedIn Live officially, which could have gone 3 times as long. So capping it there. There should be enough value for everyone. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for watching this again if you're watching it now. And just for being in my community and for all your support. Watching this supports me, supports Dr. Kristen. Please read her book. I'm going to put it up one more time. Okay. I've got the audio book and I've listened to it. I'm going to listen to it again because it is a game changer. This is your life, folks, and life is now. So get the book now. All right, everyone. See you for the next LinkedIn Live on Mental Health Awareness Month. That'll be next week with another special guest.